is the Jake for the State podcast, and this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position,
stand your ground,
and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. We are continuing to cover all of the candidates who are in this runoff leading up to August 25th. And I'm sitting down today with Senator Marty Quinn, who I had the pleasure of serving with. Senator, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jake. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the conversation.
You bet. Well, I'm glad we could finally connect. And, we've been working on getting together for a while and couldn't make it happen in person. You, of course, have been running all over the state, as I was for a while. You've continued on to the runoff. And so congrats on that you made it into the runoff. And of course, just a few more days. And of course, we're expecting you to go on to November. So I am behind Marty Quinn, had a chance to serve. I want to make sure people hear this up front. Had a chance to serve with Senator Marty Quinn in the Senate, and just getting to know him and his wife and his family, you just know I told this to a guy the other day. The word I think of when I think of you, Marty, is authentic and sincere. I believe that you are who you say you are. You mean what you say, and I appreciate that, especially in politics, as I think most people do.
Well, we try, Jake. As you know, life's full of challenges, whether that's trying to live a Christian life or whether that's trying to serve in the legislature or whether they're trying to be, a good husband or a good dad. All of it has its challenges. And we really do want to do the right thing for the right reasons. And we really appreciated the opportunity to get to serve with you first and foremost. We got to know you real well and appreciated your courage and your desire to do things the way that you felt like was the right way and for the right reasons. Even more so, got to enjoy your lovely family on the campaign trail, and those are blessings that Kelly and I, even though it's tiring and difficult at times. Those relationships that you build with you and your family also kind of refueled our tanks, on those long late night drives. So we're very appreciative, Jake, of the opportunity to get to visit with you and having got to serve with you and having got to know your family. So we appreciate that very much.
Well, absolutely. The feeling is mutual. So you have to tell Kelly we said hi.
I will.
How many miles do you think you've put on your car so far?
It's a lot closer to 100,000 than it was when we started. The car that I drove or that I'm driving has got 363,000 miles and some change.
Wow!
So we've put a bunch of miles on. Now, obviously, not all of those, but I wasn't going to go get a different vehicle and wear it out. So this has been very good to us. Still gets good gas mileage. Very, very proud that the good Lord has watched over some of those late night drives. So,
oh yeah, I'm telling you, there's a lot of them. I know we put over 100,000 on our vehicles, and it is just a nonstop go. So blessings as you finish out strong during this runoff. And let's dig into some issues. Of course, running for insurance commissioner, and this, while some may be oblivious to this role in the state, it impacts everyone. And maybe this should be, and I believe it is one of the more important positions that we'll be looking at in this runoff race, because we are all paying insurance. And I think most people believe we're paying too much. And so I know you've been asked the questions a million times across the state, chiefly, how do we reduce insurance premiums in Oklahoma?
Well, it's always going to revolve around changing the risk and changing the exposure, but just to kind of put that into play, we've got to change the legal environment that Oklahoma operates in. Best example that I can give you, Jake, my legislative experience, I've got 12 years, my opponent has 0. That's extremely important for us to be able to do the things necessary to solve some of the problems that we have in the insurance industry. An example of that, worker comp premiums years ago when I first come into the House of Representatives was almost 2.5 times what neighboring states were. Same risk, same number of employees, same premium basis was almost 2.5 times what other states were charging. They went through that legislative process, and the legal system has fought against it, continues to fight against it because that was a source of revenue for them. But what it did for the citizens of Oklahoma, it gave that employer the ability to go back and invest in his business, invest in his employees, give them better benefits, give them higher wages, maybe hire additional employees. So it was the right thing to do. It didn't go to an insurance company. It didn't go to an attorney. It went to the people who earned that money. And that's what I'm going to be fighting for on this here. So to answer the question, first of all, the first thing we have to do is start the fight. And they will fight just like they did for workers' comp. Took about a 20-year period of time. They fought the consumers of this state the whole way, and we'll continue that fight to have tort reform. Best example that I can give you is Florida passed tort reform that went into effect in 2024. They announced about 5 weeks ago. This is one company out of the entire state. So there's a lot of other companies out there. This is only one example. They gave back almost $1 billion to their policyholders, and the reason for that is the legal expenses went from 3.4 billion to 117 million.
Wow.
Now, when those changes happened, almost immediately, you had companies wanting to come back into the state of Florida to do business. That helps competition. Almost immediately, you had companies reducing their rates because they had reduced their exposure or their risk. Oklahoma can do the same thing. New York has done it. Florida's done it. Georgia's done it. Louisiana's done it. So to answer your question, legal reform is the top of the list. The second thing, when you go out and you visit with the roofers across this state, and there's lots of good roofers, they're out there working very, very hard, trying to help restore people back to where they were before the storm came through. But you got bad actors. And what they will tell you is many of those bad actors are coming in here at the worst of times from out of state.
Yeah.
And they're taking advantage of the least of Oklahoma, those that are more susceptible to being taken advantage of. And we have to have the cities, the municipalities, we have to have the counties. We're going to have to solicit law enforcement and have to have a system. We'll just call it a permitting process to where that when people come into Oklahoma to do business, if you haven't gone through the proper channels, there's going to be substantial fines waiting on you.
Yeah.
You're no longer going to be able to bring your ice cream truck from Kansas, have people sign bad contracts, and take your checks and run back to Kansas. So those are two really significant things that we've got to do, Jake.
I was just visiting with a roofer today, and you're exactly right. I mean, they're fighting a lot of battles. One is the availability of legal work in the state, which is a whole nother issue, but couple that with some of these other issues of the bad actors who come in, and it's driving out the good players, the ones who are wanting to do it legally and sincerely for the benefit of the customer. So I think that's something we need here in Oklahoma. You mentioned your time in the Senate. I mentioned that I served with you for a brief time. How do you think that works to your advantage and gives you an upper hand maybe with your opponent? How does that help you in this role as insurance commissioner?
Well, Jake, there is a huge trust factor in the legislative body. Yeah. And even when you're on opposite sides, we'll just use Democrats versus Republicans, or people that have just different views on what it is that you're trying to do. If you go in, them having to know you, it's not like you're having to build a brand new relationship. It's not like that you're having to build a brand new reputation. People know who that I am. those people that have been around me very long, there's a high level of trust. If we go in and we're pushing for a piece of legislation, those individuals already know that they can trust what it is that we're doing. Now, even if they disagree with us, let's say it's a bad piece of legislation we're trying to stop. When we come to the table and start discussing the reasons for that, there's going to be a huge element of trust that they're automatically going to have, that I need to listen to Marty because I had a relationship with him just a few years ago. We know what happens behind the scenes. We know all of the people that are working behind the scenes long after you and I was gone to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning trying to get things back out for us to work on the next day. We can walk those halls and see the people that we need to see at quicker than anybody else. We can do that on day one. And the people of Oklahoma cannot continue to wait for another year. There should not be any on the job training, and that will not be the case with me. We can walk in from day one and start that process of trying to help the people of Oklahoma find ways to reduce costs and better protect the consumers of Oklahoma.
Remind me and remind the people watching about your history in the insurance world. Tell us, how long you've been in it and what you've been doing.
Okay. The vast majority of my time was spent with shelter insurance. I worked in 3 different states, started out in my hometown as an agent, got into the management world. That job sent me to Louisville, Kentucky for a little over 7 years. That job brought me to Claremore, Oklahoma, where we spent another 28 years. Went back into the agency force in 2001. 2010 went into the House of Representatives, and a lot of that, Jake, comes from my ability to not only continue to serve as an insurance agent, but to have that transfer of people knowing who I was, that they could trust me, they liked me, they'd seen the work involvement in the community that Kelly and I had, whether that was at church, whether it was at the schools, whether it was civic or oriented. We did that, and we built up a reputation that they asked us to serve in the House of Representatives. And we did that for 4 years, went into the Senate unopposed in 2014. And we stayed with Shelter for until 2021 or 2022, somewhere in that neighborhood. Had to go back to Arkansas for a short period of time to help with family issues, health-wise. Dad had died, brother had died, family issues with, or health issues with the family. It was an obligation we felt like, and I think when conservatives talk about faith and family and freedom, those are example of us going and fulfilling our obligations. And while we're there, we were in ownership of a independent agency for about 3 years. So we got the captive side, we got the independent agent side. We continued to build our resume as far as insurance experience is concerned. And there's nobody else in the race that has, we have twice as much industry experience. And as I said previously, the legislative component separates us completely because they have, my opponent has 0 legislative experience.
Well, I want to touch on something you brought up, and that's your time in Arkansas. I feel like this has been something that's been twisted, suggesting that you're not really an Oklahoman. You served your time both in the House and in the Senate, and the reason you went back to your home state, your original home state of Arkansas, was because, like you mentioned, your father died. I feel like this is one of those areas that is just twisted in media. Is that something you'd like to address to people that may have heard the false narrative? I would say it's a false narrative.
It's not anything that we're running from, Jake. We tried to explain it, but when people are trying to get the best person out of the way, the most conservative person out of the way, the person that has the most conservative record out of the way, they do whatever they have to do to try to get that done. And you've got a moderate effort out there, to say the least, backed by trial attorneys that are trying to keep us from getting in office because they know that I'm going to fight against them. So, over a long period of time, we just had family members that disappeared, and obligation kept coming down the line. My brother was he was in charge of my mom and the hay and the cows and all those type things, and he died suddenly at 59. I was at a governor's prayer breakfast when I got the call. Shortly after that, within a couple of years, my sister got a horrible diagnosis, and it was one of those things we felt it was a family obligation that we needed to try to take care of, and that's exactly what we did. Now, unbeknownst to us, um, the scripture talks about God direct. We think that we direct our paths or our steps. God directs our steps.
Absolutely.
And 7 months after we get back to Arkansas, Kelly's mom, great lady, worked hard, 74 years old, gets a scratch on her foot. 3 days later, she turns septic and dies.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, less than 2 years later, her dad comes down with leukemia and he dies. So when people want to target us for being where we were at that point in time in our life, I'm not ashamed of it at all, because God had us where our family needed us. My mom lives with us now, and that's just one of those things that in the political realm, that I'm going to fight that fight as hard as I can fight it, because I know that I'm fighting from a standpoint of truth, and they're fighting from a standpoint of desperation and corruption. And I don't believe, if I was a true conservative Republican, that I would be looking at that individual to be the one to lead the insurance department going forward, if that's the type of campaigning that has to happen to get them elected.
I think personally, I would rather understand and know what you're going to do about the world of insurance and less about where you lived 3 years ago. But to understand the background behind it actually makes you an even more appealing candidate, Marty. The reason you went there is because you're a man of integrity to go and support your family, and fulfill those obligations. I think that just speaks to your character. That would just undergird the reason I would support you.
I appreciate that, Jake. And outside the realm of politics, that's how people look at it. We spent 30 years in Oklahoma, and that's where we raised our kids. That's where they were educated. That's where I built a career. That's where Kelly's career was established. And so we have enjoyed our time in Oklahoma, and will continue to do so. But anyway, when you're desperate, you make desperate attempts, and that's what they've been doing to distort it. And it goes even further about voting and all those type things. But uh, civic duties, when you move somewhere, you want to have an influence on what's happening. So yes, I voted in 2024, but when I moved back to Oklahoma, I registered to vote in Oklahoma County, where I was living at the time. And then when we moved to Owasso, then I changed my voting registration to the address that we live at. So we voted in Oklahoma too. And again, most people would commend you for continuing your voting practices, regardless of where you're at.
Yeah. That shouldn't be a knock. That should be
Mm-mm.
something that
Oh, just in
testifies.
case, you're asking, Jake, that 2024 vote that I cast in Arkansas was for Donald Trump.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that they leave that detail out. What brought you? First of all, I have to make it clear: is it Owasso or Owasso?
Owasso.
Owasso.
I say Owasso. Don't get me started.
No,
But
hey,
I say Owasso.
somebody was calling me out the other day about Anola.
Yeah.
I was mispronouncing that, and the crowd corrected me, real time. So I was like, apologize.
Yeah.
Is it Durant or Durant? You got to
Yeah.
get the emphasis on the right syllable. What brought you back, Marty? What brought you back to Oklahoma?
But just we spent our career in the insurance industry, and Jake, the thing about the insurance industry is, as difficult as some of the things are with certain companies now, there's a large segment of the population doing business in the state of Oklahoma that they do a lot of good that you don't ever read about. But there are some people that have tried to take some shortcuts, and that always brings up a set of problems. So Oklahoma having a situation where they're one of the highest, if not the highest, in rates is a significant issue. We have to do something about that. But I've said this. You can go find many, many sources where I have said this. Consumer protection is right there with it. If I could cut your price in half, but you were still getting lousy service, I haven't done you any favors. If I'm not paying your claims and you're still paying your premium, even though it's less, I haven't done you any favors. So we've got to address both issues.
Yeah.
And, having spent as much time in the insurance industry, it was just a natural fit for us to want to be a part of solving those issues, of showing people that I've been a servant as an agent, a manager, a legislator. Our resume is better than anybody else's that's going to be in that race. It allows us to stay active in the industry. And I'll use this as a scenario. Under normal conditions, when agents are doing what they're supposed to do, adjusters are doing what they're supposed to, and companies are doing what they're supposed to do, there's only one segment of the population when you lose your house or your spouse that they're going to deliver a check. The mortgage company is going to come asking for that check. The bank's going to come after it. The contractor's going to come after it. So it's the one, that industry is the one that under normal conditions, people doing business like they should, they're going to be delivering those proceeds to try to get back to where you were before that. And I like being in that industry. It allows me to still have a servant's heart and do what is good for people, help them, just like we helped them as a legislator, just like we helped them as an agent.
I'm going to ask you about this recent lawsuit on State Farm. For me, it seems like a good move on the part of the Attorney General. I've made it clear I'm supporting Mazie. I'm voting for Mazie, but it shouldn't keep us from supporting moves that we agree with on the other side. And so it feels like this is a move in support of the people over the big industry. Do you see it from the same angle? I mean, do you feel like this is a legitimate lawsuit against State Farm?
Well, I don't necessarily want to speak to the lawsuit. What I do want to speak to is holding companies accountable, whether it's State Farm, whether it's Allstate, whether it's Shelter Insurance, name the company. If they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, if there's shortcuts that are being made, it is the obligation of the commissioner to hold those companies accountable to the statutes and the regulations that are inside the Oklahoma Insurance Department. And we're very capable of doing that. There's actuarial studies that can be done. There's market conduct surveys. And Jake, one of the things that we've preached very, very hard, when you travel the state, there's not a single person in this race that has traveled more than we have to try to get in front of every person that we can, shake as many hands, hug as many necks as we can, to let people personally know I'm interested in what's going on with you. And so we've got to change the fact that people that would tell us their stories, I would ask them, did you call the insurance department? No, I didn't know I could. We've got to change that mindset. Calling the insurance department when you have an issue with an adjuster or with a company has to be the first option, not the last option. And here's the reason for that. The more of those calls that we get that show examples that this is what's going on, that doesn't sound quite right to me, can the Department of Insurance. When we get those and we start recording those, we get to a point to where you say, okay, I've had 100 calls over the last month or 2 months or whatever it is, and I'm going to call the company. We've already reported these, but now we've got them in a group, and I'm going to say, I'm doing a market conduct survey on you because something is going on with this adjuster or something's going on with the way you're handling claim process. So I'm going to get you to send me another 150 claims out of March, April, May, June, July, and we're going to do a survey on that to see if we can find patterns. And when we find patterns that people are doing business in ways that they shouldn't be, we're going to hold that company accountable. Now, if they're not, we're going to make sure that we go back and take care of it in that manner as well. But when we see issues of people trying to take shortcuts and not fulfill the promise that was made and not wanting to keep that promise, we're going to take the appropriate action. We got to create an environment that companies want to thrive in financially, but at the same time, you don't get to decide to take shortcuts at any given period of time.
Right. If misconduct if misconduct or these patterns are discovered, what could be the resulting action? I mean, are we talking about the ability to strip licenses? Is it what kind of legal action can be taken? Talk to us about the authority of the Oklahoma Insurance Commission.
Well, it would depend on how serious those situations were, and you don't want to talk about the worst thing that can happen. We want more companies doing business in the state, but ultimately, if companies were doing a bad enough job of not fulfilling their obligations, you can stop them from doing business in the state. Now, we don't want to get to that point because we actually, Jake, need more companies. We've got about 50 companies that are licensed to do business in the state that are sitting on the sidelines. But don't misunderstand me. If you're a bad actor in the insurance industry in Oklahoma, we're going to hold you accountable to the point that if it's egregious enough, you won't be doing business in the state. But we've got to be careful with that, to where that we balance that. And you've heard me say this in some of the speeches that you were around for. There's a balance between consumers, a balance between the corporations, and there's a balance of that legal system. And all three have to work together, because if it gets out of balance, there's going to be a higher price that's going to be paid. And that check, the first check will be written by the corporation, but the last check is written by every consumer in Oklahoma.
It's a good word. Marty, how can people listening find out more about your campaign or even reach out to you if they have additional questions?
Quinn 4 OK is where our Facebook page is. And the reason I use that, Jake, is this. You can go to that Facebook page and you can see individuals like yourself, individuals like Rob Standridge. You can find ministers, you can find business people, you can find people that we served with in the legislature, good friends, people from all walks of life that have endorsed us. There's a reason for that. There is a continuity to that. People are not going to put their necks on the line for people that don't believe in. And there's still a lot of people. When you look at the polls, a lot of numbers that you see show that there's about 40% of the people still undecided about our race. That should not be. And the reason that it shouldn't be is because I've got a track record that you can go and look up. You want to look at First Amendment? You want to look at Second Amendment? You want to look at the moral issues? You want to look at tax code? There's lots of things out there that you can go, and you're going to find a reasonable Republican. On the other side, all you get is verbiage. All you get is promises. You don't have any way of backing up what my opponent says with any evidence other than talk. Talk is cheap, and the conservatives in Oklahoma should have a proven conservative leader in the Oklahoma Insurance Department. And there's only one person that fits that mold, and that's your friend, Marty Quinn.
I love it. Go fight Quinn.
Go fight Quinn. Go fight Quinn.
Yes. Well, Marty, I really appreciate you, your work here in the state, and your pursuit of trying to help Oklahoma in the future. And so I support you in this, wish you the best luck and the blessings of God on the rest of this race. Just a few days left. And so I hope that you can advance on to November.
Thank you, Jake. We just need to stay awake on those late night drives. But thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your endorsement. And tell your followers that we need them to show up actually on Thursday, Friday, and part of Saturday for early voting.
Yes.
And August 25th is election day. And we need every single one of them coming out and voting for a true conservative, proven leader. And that's your friend, Marty Quinn. Thank you very much, Jake.
All right, Marty. God bless you. And
God bless you.
Thank you guys for tuning in once again. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.